Hi everybody, thanks for having me here today. Good morning, recovery warriors. After all, we are all recovering from something. Before I begin, I'd like to thank Antonella for inviting me to speak with you here all today. I was humbled and honoured when she said that my story and my passion for serving others in recovery was worth being told. Everything I have done was in some way or from something I myself needed or had needed and didn't receive to so many factors. Also a shout out to Amanda for all her help as well organising the event. Your help is much appreciated. My intention here today is not only to share a bit of my personal journey, but also to share with you some solutions I have begun to grow through community and with so many other women and men in recovery. Now I think it's important, and I'll grab my which I forgot, here to ask the question, am I not using it properly? Thank you. There's only like 2 buttons and I still got it right. Sweet, thank you. So what is recovery? It's such a vast and wide-reaching thing. It's a concept and a way of life. I noticed a few years ago that the different forms of recovery seemed separated by the idea that each was exclusive to the other. That somehow a person in recovery from illness was different from a person in recovery from addiction, or mental illness, domestic violence, suicide, grief, divorce, sexual abuse, natural disaster, war, and every other area you can think of. I would like to challenge that idea with you here today. As a sociologist specialising in trauma and addiction, when I see the countless realms of recovery, I see one thing: trauma. Trauma is a deeply personal and subjective thing. What is traumatic for each of us and how we experience that trauma, how we process it, is person specific, and how that trauma response manifests itself in us can only be known to that person. So then, how do we empower each and every other person in recovery to live their best lives? I believe I am very close to finding this answer. It has in fact been my life's experience and work to find this answer for myself. And I am dedicating my life to making sure as many people in recovery can have access to this solution. Difference in experience is not a reason to separate ourselves from others and focus on those differences. Because in my extensive lived experience and so many different forms of trauma and my years of professional practice, I have come to see that the underlying process of healing, overcoming and growing and learning on our recovery journeys is in fact very similar. I believe that the common societal perspectives on different forms of trauma definitely have an impact on how we currently view trauma and recovery. I see this played out in campaigns, in the justice system, access to funding, governmental policy, advocacy, social services, and so many different support systems and groups. Here today, we are putting the spotlight on peer-to-peer support and solutions, which I see as invaluable on everyone's recovery journey. I ask each and every one of you, be open to new ideas, to question your own understanding of recovery, to be wise enough and courageous enough to see where maybe, and just maybe, your automatic beliefs and perspectives are outdated, prejudiced, punitive, misinformed, or influenced by the status quo. I am not here to make you feel comfortable, dear friend. I am here to suggest that recovery can be done better, that results could be better, and that together we can do better. Okay, now big one, let's see if I can do it. Yes. Okay, my story. So let's begin with a look into my lived experience, aka life according to Jackie. I have been warned by my corporate coach not to do this, not to let it be known about my history. I know that in some areas of my professional world, what I am about to tell you could definitely be used against me as a reason to attack my ability as a businesswoman, as a leader, to question my ability to function at the level that is required for what I'm undertaking as my life's work. I understand the reasoning, and I will admit, I definitely considered keeping the book closed on this part of my story. To move forward with the mask of specialist in this and that, to play the game the way it is currently being played. After much self-contemplation and inquiry, I decided the only way I wanted to move forward in my life was unashamedly, authentic and loud. Not in voice, but in attitude and manner. To shake the ground with a new way of operating, where honesty and the value of one's ability to overcome is seen as an asset and a valuable source of information on how to create real transformational change. I figure it's a little bit like that famous scene in the movie 8 Mile, if you guys have seen it, where the rapper Eminem is at the pinnacle of his story, where he is in the final freestyle rap battle with another rapper, and he defies all his adversaries with a legendary prose about all the things they would have used against him. His race, his social status, his broken family. His adversary is left with nothing to say. It's all out there. The roast is moot, and the rest is history, so we say. So he goes. I am a recovery warrior. Stories such as mine are unique and common at the same time. And as they say, it's always best to start at the beginning. I was born on Christmas Day in 1980 in South Australia. By 8 months old, I had moved with my family to an Indigenous community on the fringes of the Simpson Desert, Apachula, or Fink. They are the Pitjantjatjara, who also refer to themselves as the Angangu people. This is Uluru country. Keep forgetting to turn my page. Okay. I lived there until I was 5 years old, and during this time I was bilingual and truly a child of the Red Desert. My parents worked with the elders to make it one of the first dry communities in Australia. My life from then on was one of two tales. A woman who has achieved so much, and secondly, a woman who has survived even more. I excelled at school and received a scholarship into law school, which ended up being a Bachelor of Clinical Psychology and Criminology. I was a proficient violinist who was accepted into WASO at 17, and to the despair of my mother and due to a huge amount of performance anxiety, I quit as I moved out of home. I have worked for multi-million-dollar industrial projects for billion-dollar companies. I have worked with the chronically ill and differently abled in search of better qualities of life. I am a mother to 3 beautiful little girls under 10, and I have lost 3 babies along the way. I am a survivor of sexual abuse by different people over a 20-year period. I am a survivor of domestic violence. I have been homeless more than once. I have been a patient in almost every psychiatric facility in Perth. I have been in long-stay rehabilitation twice. I have attempted to take my life 5 times. I live with complex PTSD. I am over 2.5 years clean from all drugs and alcohol, having been on a journey to beat my addictions now for over 16 years. I am now working as a sociologist specialising in trauma and addiction for large-scale Indigenous projects here in Western Australia. I am the founder of Women's and Men's Recovery Communities, the Managing Director of the Recovery Collective. I am a recovery warrior. And now I live my life in the relentless pursuit of creating a recovery-based movement that works on the empowerment of all in their journeys. As I look back on my life now at the age of 40, I'm able to see the beauty in the struggle. There was a time when I felt like I was a failure. As a woman, as a mum, and as a survivor. You see, I was recovering from more than just one thing. Life is a patchwork of experiences, and so was my search for healing. I tried everything you can think of. Every discipline, every approach, medical, mental health, spiritual, self-help, 12-step, services and organisations. I realised there was no one panacea, no one quick fix to rescue me. I had to learn to find peace in the chaos, to dance in the storm, to find joy in the madness. I had to find my own formula, my own combination of what resonated with the woman I was, and eventually I learnt that what I had been searching for all this time was within me. I created my cornerstone of healing out of desperation, Women's Recovery Community, which even today is my saving grace. In the beginning of 2018, I had 3 children under 5 years old, in an unhappy marriage, in a rural location, no money, no available services, and desperately trying to stay clean and slowly losing my grip on my sanity. I created a closed Facebook group, which is now nearing 2,000 women, and collaborating with over 5 services. It covers all types of recovery, from addiction to illness, to grief to disability, mental illness to divorce. We are all recovering from something, and rather than focusing on our differences, we unite in our common healing. 2.5 years ago, I had a brief relapse after my marriage broke down, after almost 4 years clean. I had to start again. There is so much I could say about this time, so much I was furious about. But I have learned so much more and am finally at a place where I can see the reasons. I have found forgiveness and can feel the benefits of my journey. I have finally found peace and acceptance and love in all areas. It feels so damn good. I still live with a chronic mental illness, and that my corporate coach again has warned that I should never disclose due to the profound stigma that is attached. I now know that my story is not to be feared. I will not sit in the shadows and to pretend to only be half of myself. My challenges and experiences are my triumph. They have no impact on my ability to excel in my field. In fact, they are my source of strength, my superpower, if you will. When you have managed to recover your life after so much pain, nothing seems unachievable. I have the ability to see things from both sides of the fence. I can see solutions and provide a path forward that all can experience the benefit. A way of recovery that works, and a way that gives hope to those who are society's most vulnerable. We are warriors because so many of us live a daily battle that no one else can see or touch. A battle that lasts so much longer than the critical events. We as a community can provide 24/7 support for each other. We can love and carry one another until we are able to walk our own recovery paths. So now I no longer see myself as 2 different women. I am whole and I am perfect just as I am. So, like many things in life, I believe the solution is simply complex. Simple in the way that it already exists. So many are already doing it. There doesn't need to be any long-term studies to prove it or give it viability. It works. I have proof. I am the proof. You, my dear, already have the answer. It is within you. Every single one of you. Your internal compass will show you the way. You have the reins, and the power to make the decisions. It is complex in the way that it requires the collaboration of all existing modes of healing. It needs all egos to be dismantled, for competition and separation of the industry to be disintegrated. There are so many amazing people, programs, organisations, skills, research and knowledge out there with one massive problem. People in need have very little access to them, knowledge that they exist, and the capacity to engage. The fundamental breakdown in society's quest to help our most vulnerable is evident in the statistics, the mismanagement of funding, obsession with risk analysis, fear, inaction, cutting funding, and a lack of knowledge of what actually works. I told you, I'm not here to make you feel comfortable. I'm here to invoke change, to challenge the status quo. People are suffering and people are dying, and to me this is unacceptable. We need less talk, we need action. And yes, there will be mistakes. We are all human after all. But if we unite in the common movement of true transformational change, we will see people empowered to heal themselves and achieve true lasting recovery. One of the biggest challenges here is stigma. Punitive perspectives, ego-driven self-image, public popularity, winning votes and looking good by doing very little. I completely understand the logic and I see it every day. The lack of innovative solutions that are results-driven baffles me. So many are trying and doing amazing work. This is not an attack on them. What I am saying is that we should be holding ourselves to a much higher standard across the board. Just because things have been done a certain way for such a long time, it does not mean they can't change. I'm not stepping into this arena because I want to look good, get kudos or put awards on my mantle. I want people to get better, really get better, not band-aids that cost multi-million dollars a pop and end up causing more trauma. I want them to be reunified with their children and their families, to be empowered to recover and live their best lives. And when getting better health-wise isn't an option, I want them to be able to find joy in every last day that they have on this beautiful planet. I need for people to be applauded and respected for reaching out for help, to be truly listened to when they say, I'm not okay. For society to be based on access to 24/7 support in any area of their life that needs healing. I began my own 24/7 peer support community out of complete desperation. It has grown into a community that is gaining recognition by many NPOs who see the benefit and are eager to provide their services to those in need. I have done this with no money, countless hours of work, and a passion that is insatiable. I do it because I deserve recovery. I do it because we all deserve it. No money can only get us so far, so I have now secured a full board and have formed the Recovery Collective Limited. Next year we will be moving forward with many more collaborations and funding options so that my new formula for successful recovery will be accessible to all. So I've got this little triad of logos on the screen and I thought it would be easier for you guys to kind of see how the vision is. So the TRC is the Recovery Collective, which has just been formed now. And we'll have our first board meeting and talk about vision. But the TRC is where we will engage with everyone. So each and every one of you who are within a service, I welcome you all to come and engage with us. You know, this is about collaboration. So we'll be setting up some think tanks and get people in so that see how we can work better together. Women's recovery community and men's recovery community are registered under TRC. They're my babies. They're the 24/7 support portals. Now, I already collaborate with other organisations using this. The purpose of these portals is not only to be a 24/7 support group for the people, and I will talk about it more in a second, but it's also to be a place where if you have a service and you offer especially free services, groups, organisations, counselling, that we can collaborate together so that you can promote those services directly on that group. Because you know, people when they're at their lowest don't really have the capacity to look for things, but they can scroll, yeah? They can scroll, and we can actually, and you know, it may plant a seed and it may take a little while for people to know, but once they trust, because this group is trusted, people feel safe here. So we can actually access and give all of those beautiful services that everyone is already offering on this one portal. And we're doing the same for men's recovery community as well. It's a little bit smaller, but I can't be on the group, you know, because I'm a woman. So I've just finally found someone, and he is going to be running the group in my capacity. So we're just starting to work together on that. So, I know what you're thinking. How on earth do I have all the answers? Because we hear that a lot, don't we? Well, it's more of a concept. It's a formula, if you will. Connect, heal, restore. Connect to others in recovery. Get empowered on your healing journey and restore your life to its highest potential. The first element, connection, is underway, and many people already connect in some form or another with friends, family, counsellors, peer groups, support groups and causes. You know, the fun runs, the fundraising, awareness days and months, social media campaigns, etc. And they're nice, they're good, but we want to go past that. What about those late nights? Those early mornings and those days where we just don't want to, or we just can't get out of bed? What if we have several areas in our life that we're in recovery for and not just one? For many of us on our recovery journeys, true, meaningful, free connection that is accessible 24/7 seems like a tall order. There are some platforms out there that are already starting to do this, and that is excellent, but we need more. And as I say, I'm clearly a fan of the peer-to-peer format. It's also based on empowerment and psychoeducation, networking, information accessibility, and unity in all the different types of recovery. The growth of women's and men's recovery communities, whose structure is based on the needs and passion of its members, who are the determinants of its growth, I believe the answer is already here. Remember, I started these groups out of desperation and I had no money. I simply did what I needed. The best thing about the communities is that there is no hierarchy. No one is better than the other. There is personal responsibility, as only a person is allowed to join. If an organisation wants to partner with us, they must allocate a certain woman or man to be the admins in each of those groups. We have over 20 members across the groups who moderate the sites, and every post and person is approved prior to going live. We have general rules that apply to every single member and anonymous posting for those who need help but also need their privacy. The groups are private. The only people in the group can see who is members and what is posted. We have a huge number of people who are silent observers. Our statistics show that over 93% of our members are active in our community, viewing and participating in posts. And I thought I'd put in a story here. A couple of years ago, I went to my 20-year high school reunion. And I think I'd started Women's Recovery Community about 6 months beforehand. And I'd added a lot of people I knew and shared my story, which was, you know, I had panic attacks after I posted that first post, but I just knew that I had to be honest about what I was going through. Now, no one from my high school or really anyone liked any of the posts or had even commented, so I just figured it was falling by the wayside with them. Now, Obviously, in recovery, I don't drink, so I'm at a 20-year high school reunion. So slowly, as everyone had had a few wines and beers, they quietly pulled me to the side, all the women. And I spent the whole 5 hours being pulled by different women who would talk to me about how much women's recovery community had affected them, how it was helping them in their daily lives, how they didn't post because they felt like they didn't belong because they weren't, recovering from the typical AOD. I walked out of that place like floating on a cloud. I just thought, my gosh, like people are being affected. And for me, I only ever write things with the hope that there's someone who maybe was just like me, heavily suicidal, feeling like I couldn't reach out, who will see something and it will give them a little bit of hope. Now, that's not the only time that's happened. So in the last few years, I continually get pulled aside by people. And for me, that's why I see the silent observer as so important. And it's not about the likes, it's not about how popular we are, it's about the people we're helping and how effectively we're helping. And luckily enough, I'm a super nerd, so I look at underlying stats of how the group runs, and we know it runs really well. So we have live events online, hybrid events online and in-person events, and they are all free. We cover all areas of recovery, as I have said. And before I actively encourage all other recovery-related peer support groups, peer groups, organisations, services to participate in our community. Because recovery is complicated. It affects every area of our lives and the lives of our loved ones. There is a desperate need, I feel, for there to be an open invitation for everyone to get involved. The necessity for specific, focused, interpersonal support has not gone away. These support and peer groups always have and always will be essential. What I'm saying is the evolution to unity in recovery is here. So, what about empowered healing? So many of us who are just beginning on their recovery journeys are extremely vulnerable, lacking in self-belief, awareness, skills and tools to help themselves in recovery. For some, all they need is a mental health referral, 10 sessions with an approved psych, and they are good to go. For most of us, this is not nearly enough. Our medical and mental health systems are overloaded. They are ill-equipped for the pandemic that is recovery today. I believe that rather than putting more pressure and blame on them, rather than waiting and campaigning tirelessly to the government for change, which still needs to be done, by the way, but we need to act on our own behalf. Everyone needs a seat at the table and a say in how they can heal, because the only expert on you, my dear, is you. It seems much easier said than done. We can look at it as an insurmountable obstacle or as a brand new adventure. I think it's totally doable. I believe that each individual's ability to be in charge of their own healing, as long as they have access to the information, support, and understanding that recovery takes as long as it takes. Sometimes people will recover quickly, sometimes very slowly. And when we remove judgment and replace it with unconditional support, understanding, and love, people begin to trust. They begin to feel like they belong. And this is a very powerful thing. Once we then introduce the information in bite-sized, life-applicable bites, the changes begin. Once we show someone that there is hope, that many have been successful before and that many will after, this will sow that seed. Where there was once despair and hopelessness, now there is light. Once the information can be absorbed into the psyche, people in recovery can hear more. They can do more. One step, one day at a time, at their own pace, when they are ready. And the community will always be there with the information, the people, the resources, the pages, the things to do, the peer groups to go to come back as many times as they need. My modus operandi, my life ethos, if you will, is that where there is breath, there is hope. The key is never giving up. Rest, take a break, reassess, regroup, but never, never give up. I see so much frustration from practitioners, organisations, movements and programs. The misunderstanding of the true process of recovery, unrealistic expectation placed on those seeking to get well. As a society, we can hypothesise as much as we want. Researchers and discuss. See, I'm not a fan. The folly here is that the gold mine of lived experience, true bottom-up development, is mostly overlooked. Everything I do is under consultation of my own vast lived experience and the experience of others. Combined with my mainstream clinical qualifications, my professional work, and insatiable passion to truly empower those in recovery to transform their own lives. I am in a very unique and favourable position to help bring about real change, real results, and real healing. And we all need a purpose. This is the final stage, restoration of life to its highest part. A reason to get up in the morning. Many people in society are taken gently through this path with many support systems, enough money, education, inspiration, and healthy ways of coping and living. But what about those who have not? Those whose lives have been a very far cry from this. They are disappearing, becoming statistics, and that is not okay. We as a society need to provide this re-education in the University of Life. Re-parenting with understanding, boundaries and unconditional love. The person on their recovery journey needs to be at the helm of the ship, open to discover what modes of healing work for them. Where the practitioners and the organisations are at service rather than the authority. When one feels in control of their own fate, they begin to discover their passion. The change is expedited as they see that their recovery is theirs. They can see and try all the options, find what resonates, and then fill their toolboxes with all of the things that work for them. What works and what we keep in our toolbox is fluid and changing as we change. And just how we as a society must change and evolve with the times, with new knowledge and new discoveries. To stay stuck in old ways just because it is familiar and what works breeds separation. A place for overinflated egos and people focusing on lining their pockets and protecting their own security and interests instead of society as a whole. I do not look to those who have achieved all the awards, accolades and qualifications. I look to their vision, their action and their service to those in need. In my experience, those who have been greatly successful on their recovery journeys become the new leaders in the recovery field. The more that they restore their lives, naturally the better society gets. Statistics will improve in all areas: medical, mental health, the justice system, illness and injury. It has been done and proved to be better than ever predicted in other countries. I do not see the purpose in long, drawn-out conversations about risk analysis and planning. They are, of course, essential part of the puzzle, but they're not the whole shebang. People are dying and people are suffering. Now is the time for action. And I see people recovering every day, despite everything they face. Could you imagine the change if our government, medical system, NPOs, organisations and services all work together. If there was no stigma, but admiration for those brave enough asking for help, you know, I can imagine it. I can see it. And I am working towards it. So why don't you join me? Life now for me, after so much growth and so much work on my own healing, is akin to the beautiful words by Brene Brown, daring greatly. My life now is a radical act of self-love and of service to others in need. Getting up here today was exciting and scary. It's out of my comfort zone. With the challenges and trials of my life, my comfort zone was anxiety, stress, distress, depression, and a million masks. And I don't live there anymore. I found my people, my community. My toolbox is full, and I am empowered in my own healing. I have found my passion and restored my life to its highest path. Nothing I have suggested today, I have not done myself. I did it for me, and I did it for my 3 beautiful daughters. So I ask you, did something shift in you? Did you learn something new? Are you a little wiser? Because that is what an open mind will do. It will move mountains. Thank you.